50,000 years ago, our ancestors had no writing, and yet they did not forget. They drew on cave walls. They carved lines into bone. They shaped clay. These were not mere decorations. Humanity tried to store memory outside the body because there was simply too much to hold in the mind alone. The first attempt, around 40,000 years ago, they drew their prey. They carved constellations. They left scenes of ritual. But pictures only show a single moment. Who owed what to whom? How much was given? These things pictures could not record. A second attempt, carving lines into bone. The Ishango bone, over 30,000 years old, carries 168 marks. Scholars call it humanity's first mathematics. But notches had limits too. They could not tell sheep from goats. They could not say if a transaction happened yesterday or the day before. A more precise tool was needed. Around 8000 BC, the plains of Mesopotamia, people began to settle and live together in one place. When cities arose, so did problems. Who deposited how many bushels of wheat? Who borrowed how many sheep? Memory alone was not enough. A solution emerged: clay tokens. Small cones, spheres, hemispheres. Each represented something different. The cone, a sheep. The sphere, oil. The hemisphere, grain. A simple promise you could see at a glance. These tokens were sealed inside large clay envelopes. The envelope was called a bulla. The contents were marked on the outside. The discoverer was Denise Schmandt-Besserat, an American archaeologist at the University of Texas. From 1969, over 30 years, she analyzed more than 8,000 Mesopotamian tokens. Her conclusion was clear. The marks on the envelope became pictures. Pictures became signs. The first writing of humanity was a receipt. We tend to think writing began with love poems or great epics. But in reality, it began in account books. Records of money and goods, that was the mother of writing. The variety of tokens kept growing. A loaf of bread, a bolt of cloth, a garment, and even types of sheep, bulls, cows, calves, each became its own shape. As goods grew more varied, so did the tokens. 3400 BC, Uruk. Today, about 250 kilometers south of Baghdad in Iraq. And here, one of the most important inventions in human history took place. The clay envelope became flat. The marks once carved on the envelope broke free. The tokens disappeared. Only the signs remained on a flat tablet. That was the true beginning of writing. What once was a picture of a sheep became, in itself, the sign for sheep. From picture to sign, from representation to abstraction. This leap was a turning point of human civilization. On clay tablets from this era, archaeologists have found records of 87,000 liters of barley. Wages for workers. Beer rations. Humanity's first sentences were not poems, not love letters, they were accounting records. Let me say it again, writing began with money. The tablet you see now is the Uruk IV inscription, a record from about 5,400 years ago. We call it the earliest known writing in human history. Museums preserve such tablets forever. The Pergamon Museum in Berlin, the British Museum, and the National Museum in Baghdad. The original first writing of humanity rests there. Let's summarize. On the left, the original tablet. In the middle, the Sumerian sign. On the right, the modern meaning. What humanity's first writing said, we can now see at a single glance. But pictures had limits. How do you draw the word went? How do you draw the feeling afraid? The Sumerians found a solution. The rebus principle. In Sumerian, the word for arrow was T. The word for life was also T. When sounds match, you borrow the picture. The arrow became the sign for life. With this one principle, abstract ideas, emotions, and even verbs became writable. This was the moment humanity first recorded sound. Pictures had ended. The age of sound had begun. The same principle appears in other civilizations. Egyptian hieroglyphs, Chinese characters, Mayan script, all passed through this stage where pictures came to represent sounds. But Sumer reached this stage first. The first humans ever to discover that an arrow could mean life. It happened around 3200 BC in Uruk. The tools changed too. At first, a sharpened wooden stick was used to draw in clay, but it was painfully slow. The solution was reed. Cut at an angle, it formed a triangular tip. Pressed into clay, it left a wedge-shaped mark. That is where the name cuneiform comes from. In English, cuneiform, from the Latin cuneus, meaning wedge. This discovery matters deeply. The form of writing is never just a design. The tool and the material decide what writing looks like. Why was clay the material in Mesopotamia? The answer is simple. Mesopotamia is a plain between two rivers. Clay was everywhere, but there was no paper, no parchment. Environment chose the tool. The tool chose the writing. Now let me introduce one person. Enheduanna, between 2285 and 2250 BC. She was a high priestess to Nana, the Sumerian moon god. She is the first named author in history, the first human being to sign her name to a poem. She was the daughter of Sargon the Great of the Akkadian Empire. Political power, religious authority, and literary talent. She held all three, a remarkable woman. Her works hymns to the moon god, praises to the goddess Inanna, all inscribed in cuneiform on clay tablets. Why did she sign her own name? The reason is clear. It was a declaration, I am the one who wrote this. A will to step out of anonymity. That was humanity's first authorial consciousness. Her poetry from 4,300 years ago still survives today. And the reason is only one, because writing existed. Before Enheduanna, writing was an account book. After Enheduanna, writing became poetry. One woman changed the purpose of writing itself from accounting to literature. Now, let's decipher together. Learn just one sign and you can read a tablet from 4,000 years ago. On the left, the original symbol in Sumerian, dingir, meaning sky or God. The next sign is En, meaning Lord or King. What happens when we combine these two? Dingir plus En, Lord of the sky, the supreme God. Two signs together made a new meaning. At SCRIPTA, you can explore everything we covered today. Sumerian sign search, Enheduanna's original texts, filters by era, all in a single page. I encourage you to visit it yourself. You can feel writing from 4,000 years ago at your fingertips. First, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Humanity's first epic poem recorded in cuneiform. A flood story, a quest for eternal life. A tale older than the Bible, by 1,000 years. Second, the CDLI project, an international effort digitizing over 500,000 cuneiform tablets from around the world. Third, the relationship between Akkadian and Sumerian, the history of conquerors borrowing the script of the conqueror, remarkably similar to the relationship between Latin and English. The cave paintings of 17,000 BC, the clay tokens of 8,000 BC, the first inscriptions at Uruk in 3,400 BC, a journey of 50,000 years. At its end were the rebus principle, the reed stylus, and the poetry of Enheduanna, at the end of 50,000 years writing. One more fact to note. Sumerian cuneiform was used for nearly 2,800 years, until around 600 BC. Then it yielded its place to the alphabet and vanished. Writing is not eternal, but the human memory carved within it that is eternal. The letters carved on clay 4,000 years later still speak to us today. If today's video meant something to you, please subscribe and like. And let me know in the comments which moment in this 50,000-year journey moved you most. See you in the next episode.